Brittany, that's very true. That is very true. But what's happening down? Be more specific.
The spindles.
Thank you. Everybody can share a piece. So we are stretching the spindle. Yes, that's right. So when we tap the tendon, it causes that muscle spindle to be stretched. Remember, it responds to stretch. So when it stretches the muscle spindle, the signal goes back through the spinal nerve, back to the spinal cord. Remember, we have that little connection there, and it activates the cell bodies for the alpha motor neuron, remember? And so for the instance of the patellar tendon, what nerve are we checking? What's the name of the nerve? Femoral. Okay, so I tap the tendon, stimulate the muscle spindle, and then we get that very quick monosynaptic reflex. Remember, it's monosynaptic, so it's very fast. Goes back to the cord, synapses on the alpha motor neuron, which causes a contraction of the quad. If that happens normally, then that area is normal. What happens if the reflex is diminished? What would that tell you?
There could be a lesion, there could be an impingement, there could be multiple things going on.
That's right. Does that tell you that it's an upper motor neuron problem or a lower motor neuron problem if the reflex is decreased? Lower motor neuron. Something's happening in that reflex arc there. Because remember, it's a spinal reflex. The reflex is a spinal reflex. So if the reflex is diminished, there's something wrong there. And we'll talk about all the different things that could be wrong later. If the reflex is hyperreflexive or overreactive, is that an upper motor neuron or a lower motor neuron? Upper. Okay, and that's what you're going to learn in rehab in the fall, about the different tracks and things and supraspinal control. But if it's hyperreflexive, it's an upper motor neuron problem. That's all you need to know at this point. Okay? All right. The scale. Anybody remember the scale for the reflexes? Yes. What's normal? What number is normal? 2 or 2 plus. Sometimes you see 2 plus is what's normal. So if you saw the 1, it's diminished. 0 means it's absent. 3 means it's hyperreflexive. What would 4 be? Clonus? Clonus. Good. All right. So where are we going to test C5? What tendon am I going to tap to test the C5 reflex? The biceps tendon. So there's lots of ways. If you guys have a hard time finding the biceps tendon, what's a simple thing you can do? Have or contract. So I can say push up into me and I palpate that tendon just to make sure I'm on the biceps tendon. I place my thumb over the tendon. I'm going to use the pointy part of the hammer and I'm going to tap my thumb. I'm going to give it a quick, and remember, practice is like throwing darts. It's a wrist flick. Not this, okay? Not this. Flick, okay? All right, so I'm going to come in here and I'm going to tap. You will see the response, and underneath my thumb, I feel the jerk, okay? There we go. Everybody see it? See? Let's see how many times we can. Okay? All right, so that's C5, the biceps. Where am I going to check C6?
Brachioradialis.
Brachioradialis. Very good. There's a couple places you can check brachioradialis. You can check up onto the muscle belly here, or you can move down into the forearm and test where it's becoming tendinous. Remember how the brachioradialis becomes tendinous and comes down? Okay, so you just place her arm in neutral. Okay, for this one, I'm going to use the flat side of the hammer. Okay, and I'm just going to give it a tap. What should be the reflex? What should you see?
Radial deviation.
Radial deviation. Okay, and If you don't feel it or see it, you can do the same thing with tapping on your thumb. Okay? I'm seeing the twitch there.
She ain't doing
No, it's there. See? It's there. Alright, and then if I come down, there we go. That was real good. Oh, I'm causing her to fatigue out here. Bruiser. Okay? Alright, so that's C6. Where am I going to check C7? Triceps. Okay? So, you want the arm to be very relaxed, okay? Because if she's holding her arm up here, you're not going to get the reflex. You want to come down onto that distal portion of the tendon, okay? Flat side, and what should be the reaction?
Extension.
Extension. There we go. Did you see it? Did you see it? That was a little one that time. That was a little bit more. Ah, there we go. Wrist flick. Good wrist flick. Okay? C5, C6, C7. All right. How are we going to check L3? Quads. Patellar tendon. Okay? So, you come in, you palpate the tendon. A lot of mistakes that I see are people banging on the tibial tuberosity. So you have to palpate. Okay? You don't want to bang on the tuberosity. You want to come here. I almost got a reflex just doing that. All right? And you want to palpate the tendon, and then there's the reflex. If you bang down here, you're not going to get a reflex, and you're only going to hurt her or him. All right?
You get a response, but not a reflex.
What's that? Yeah, that's true. Okay, so that's L3. How are we going to test S1?
Hamstrings.
Achilles. Does it say something different, George?
No, S1.
Okay.
It says L5 through S3, so I just took it. S1 was
I
in
was
that
just
group.
making sure I didn't have a moment. Okay, so when you're checking the Achilles tendon, what you need to do is just put the foot in slight dorsiflexion and put your hand under the bottom of the foot, because when you tap, you're going to feel her foot push down into your hand. Okay, but if you already just let the foot hang down here, you're not likely to get much reflex because we're already positioned in a plantar flex position. So just slight stretch. Make sure you're doing it. Don't let them do it, because if she's holding in dorsiflexion, you're not going to get a reflex. Okay? So I'm going to put her in slight dorsiflexion, flat side of the hammer again, okay? And then hit the back of the tendon. And then I'm going to feel, you may see, but a lot of times it's more of a feel. You feel that contraction. There was a good one, down into my hand, okay? So that's that one, you've got to get your hand under there. Okay. Medial and lateral hamstrings we can do as well. Let's do those first. Let's do